Dr. Philip Agrios, welcome to the Easy Conversations podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the honor of being here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, pleasure's all mine. And I'm really excited to talk about some of the things we're going to jump into, especially around the work that you do, sabotaging ourselves. Been really looking into that for many reasons, especially with the clients I work with. There's that whole self-fulfilling prophecy or self-preservation that comes in for people, and they know that they can protect themselves from failure, then they don't have to feel the shame that comes with it. So then how can they just not prepare for whether it's tests or interviews? So it shows up in so many facets of our lives, and I'm sure we'll get into all of that. But before we jump into the full discussion, I do want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself with the listeners and who you are, what's brought you here today.
Yeah, I used to practice as a chiropractor and a functional medicine practitioner. My specialty was thyroid and autoimmune disease. And I practiced for 35 years. And during those years, I happened to stumble across a biological trait that we are born with that is the sole reason why we self sabotage ourselves, why we stop our success. And when I first found it, I was like, there's no way. This is too simple. So I went out to try to disprove it. And over 30 years, researching thousands and thousands of people, not only was I able to prove it, I found a way to switch it off instantly, and it works 100% of the time. So about 3, 4 years ago, I left my practice and I'm doing this full time. I reference myself as a self-sabotage specialist, a business and a business consultant because we work with executives, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals all around the world. However, we do also work with from children to people who are having marital problems to PTSD, veterans, to so many other different things that this one trait, once they understand it and how to switch it off, is a game changer for them.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I am curious because you're talking about your work in chiropractic. Did you notice any commonalities, whether it was people that were presenting this trait and how it was showing up in their bodies? Like, I'm just curious if there's any connection there.
Yes. So, in a broader sense, when I was working with autoimmune conditions, which are the sick of the sickest, right? And so, what we would do is when stress kicks in, there we'll have flare ups, we call them. So, I remember I had a lupus patient who was doing very well. And she came to me and says, I'm doing well, but every time I go home and I bicker with my husband, I get my flare ups. And I said, get him in here. So we got him in. He understood his saboteur and his sequence. He understood hers. She understood his. And then once they realized that they didn't really hate each other or dislike each other, they were just protecting themselves from themselves at that moment in time. And when they used the T now method, is what we call it, we found that they bickered less and her symptoms dropped and her flare ups wouldn't come back as so much. So she could heal much faster. And I started seeing that across the board with patients who were addictive to whether they were drugs, to food, to work, to so many different things.
Mm.
And we all found out that it was from this one trait. One of the things I was able to discover was when people would come to me and go, you're going to kill me. And I was like, what you do now? And they say, I had a pizza. I said, okay, how do you feel? I've been in pain for 4 days. I said, I'm glad you did it. Congratulations. Now you're reinforcing that. But I have a really curious thought. I want to know what triggered you that caused you to eat that pizza or whatever I told them they couldn't eat because it caused a flare up that was more painful to deal with than the 4 days of pain that you're experiencing. And what we were able to discover was that trigger was the saboteur, which then would trigger them to go to their numbing agents. Okay. So whether it was overworking, stress, to eating, to drinking, to whatever the case may be. And then once we were able to show them how to deal with the trigger with the T-Now method, two things happened. They lessened their numbing agents or they stopped them. And I was like, wow. And that's why I had very high success rates because we were able to give them just the one thing to focus on and not 10 or 12 steps or a whole slew of things, but just one thing to focus on. And then there was a cascade of a behavioral domino effect that I called that caused them to now be able to take more control of their health.
Yeah, yeah. And what I'm hearing from you is a couple of things. So obviously, if you're able to understand this trait, not only is it going to help you in your life moving forward, but it also has the physical benefits as you're touching on, because a lot of people experience these flare ups. The other piece I'm hearing is you touched on it, but there's a lot of overlap in how addictive behavior manifests. And sometimes it's that trigger that we experience, this internal state that creates discomfort and stress. And we will tend to engage in these behaviors to escape that sensation that we're feeling. And that's what I'm hearing as well. Even with this one individual you're describing, the pizza on the surface is just the behavior, but we don't really see what's going on below the surface with respect to that internal state. When I hear we're born with this trait, for a lot of people, that could be very difficult to absorb, because if I'm born with it, can I make a change? And assuming that's what the T-Now method's based on, but let's talk about this inborn trait and how do we become aware of it?
Yeah, so I call it the inborn sabotaging trait.
Mm.
It doesn't undermine us. It actually protects us from the very success that we seek, because subconsciously, to actually achieve and sustain that success that we want is more painful. So we go back doing what we're consistently doing because that's less painful, just like the pizza compared to dealing with what we want or get to that point. It's the fear of failure or the fear of the success. They're both the same side of the coin. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So when you start to release your personal and professional power and you hit that wall, the saboteur kicks in to protect you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not an idiot. You're not a loser. All the other 100 words we say to ourselves, you're just in protection. So it's your protective mechanism that, number one, you don't want to get rid of. You can't get rid of it. It'd be stupid to get rid of it if you could.
Yeah.
It's protecting you. And it's a mind blower for some people going, self-sabotage is a self-protection.
Mhm.
And they just like, really? And they will go from whether it's imposter syndrome to procrastination to overly talking or scattered all over the place, or overly giving and people taking advantage of you, or not able to express your brilliance to people, or overthinking, or whatever the emotion that you're experiencing or the feeling that you're experiencing that is causing you to go into protection. So when you start to release your personal professional power and you hit that wall, as you start to contract, knowing it's only one trait,
Mm.
and then using what we call the T-Now method, or part of it is called the antidote, right? I called it the antidote because it works 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So when you use the antidote, you instantly go into growth. And now you're doing this compared to just, whoops, keep my hitting my mic, instead of it going into that hamster wheel of the thing going over and over again. So
Yeah.
that's what it is. When people like, does the trauma cause this? And I said, no. When you're born with it, what we're finding is that the trauma comes in order for you to evolve by finding it. So the traumas that are happening help you to see, how am I protecting myself? And then from there, learning at how to deal with it through understanding that antidote or the T-Now method, whatever. And that's what was able to find it. And that's why for decades, I'm like, this can't be this simple.
Mm.
So like I said, I tried to disprove it and we couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I'm hearing too is, as you're touching on, is, as you said, you want to become an ally with this trait, right? You want it to
You
be
want to
your
dance
ally.
with it.
And then what you're sharing is it then allows you to expand your capabilities and your potential, rather than, if you're not integrating it into your life, then it's contracting and holding you basically small, as people would say. And is it fair to say, from your perspective, that even the traumas we experience, they're happening for us then? Because in the therapeutic standpoint, when people are able to make that shift, that all these things that have happened to me, all these challenging situations, traumatic situations, as tough as it is to look at it that way, it was happening for me. And that brings about so much agency and freedom and liberation as you start to shift your perspective and start your healing.
Great question. What I teach is what many of the ancients have taught, is that, yes, things are not happening to you. They're happening from you, through you, and for you. Yeah, I've heard that, whatever. It's all baloney. It's garbage. So one of the things I was able to help people to understand is that everything outside of you is you. The person you can't stand is a part of you you can't stand. That's why they're showing up, to show you what you're not dealing with. That's why you're pissed off at them. You show up in my life to show me what I'm not dealing with. What I used to do, I went through a lot of stuff. I went, and you can look at my bio another time, but I went through a lot of trauma and many things over kind of 20 years or so. And one of the things I realized was that at that moment, I would say, I wonder what gift I'm getting. I wonder what gift I'm getting. Oh man, I can't wait to see what gift I'm getting on this one. And then later I realized that was my gift, got the gift. The gift was for me to figure out how to use this as a benefit. But we've been taught how to use it as a detriment. So you can look at anything coming your way as good, bad, or just is. If you go into the just is, even though something good happening, because when you get, oh, it's all, everything's great, and you get into that higher level, drop, right? Now, I'm not telling you to be a robot. I'm telling you that your ups and downs, your crests and things like that should be like this,
Yes.
not like a roller coaster. And that's
Yeah.
what happens to people. So when that happens, how many times have you asked, prayed, meditated, or people in your audience have done the same thing, or your loved ones, and something bad happens? See, I shouldn't have done this. I knew it. They're punishing me. I must have done something wrong, and all the other stories we make up in our heads. They're not punishing you. The bad thing was there to wake you up, was to help you to look at, do you really want to go down this path? Maybe there's another path. Delays. Even myself, we've got some major things happening with the business soon. For the last 5 months, there has been delay to delay. Have you ever been through that, guys? You listening? What the heck's going on? Right now, things are, in the next few weeks, we're going to see it's actually going to happen. But when I look at all the delays, if the first person said yes to it, we would never be in the major situation we were in. By me just allowing and going, okay, what's the gift?
Yeah.
See, it's up to you to interpret what that experience is. There's nothing for you to learn. You're perfect beings. There's nothing to learn. You're here to experience.
Yeah. Well, and to add to that, I completely agree with you. There's a gift in everything. And sometimes we don't see it, right? You may not see it for years. And then for me, it's happened so many times. I just sit there and a realization comes to me. Oh, now I see it all. If I just have that wider lens view and I'm like, okay, it makes sense. But sometimes it will never make sense. But there's this aspect of faith, I guess, that comes in, that it is all happening for me. And there is that lesson to be taken as well, as you touched on, in a different way, because if these bad situations, as we label them, do not happen, then we're not going to make changes. And growth happens when we make those changes. And I remind people,
adversity causes us to evolve.
correct.
You have a choice with every situation, to evolve or dissolve. They're both there at the same time.
Yeah.
My life is falling apart. Yeah, but it's also falling together. How's that big? You can't have short without tall. You can't have healthy without unhealthy. As things are falling apart, if you look on the other end, they're falling together.
Yeah.
What side do you want to look at?
Yes. Yeah. It's the glass half full or glass half empty approach,
Yeah,
right?
you can't evolve without dissolving. You can't dissolve without evolving. They happen at the exact same time.
Yes.
We
Absolutely.
live in a dichotomy world, up, down, in, out, yin, yang, and all that stuff. And people don't realize, they just see what's happening and not allowing them to interpret, how is this a benefit for me? But when you get emotionally charged, it's hard to do. It's calming that emotional charge down by using what we call the antidote, or the T-Now method. And then from there, they can get a bit different perspective, a more neutral perspective, and not take it personally.
Yes.
So I want to hear that again. Don't take it personally. That's where you get tripped up.
And that's why it's so important, to your point, to not make an emotional based decision, right? Experience the emotion, pay attention to it. And once you're able to have that time to sit with that emotion, then you're able to navigate around it and realize that it is not personal. But again,
That's key.
yeah,
You said sit. How many people just don't sit? They keep on forcing it. They got to go through it. They take their sword and their shield and general has retreated. It's no embarrassment. It's smart. It's
yeah,
intelligent. So by sitting and saying, okay, you know what? I'm taking the day off. I'm going to do something else, maybe a couple of days and get myself reset. I just had a client just said the same thing. Selling, because we also teach how to sell and increase their closing rates, because the inborn sabotaging trait, when a person doesn't close, is the reason, because it's actually more subconsciously painful to close that person. And he was, it's like within 3 different ways, he was not selling. And he got all frustrated. He went into his little whatever, which is fine.
yeah,
And he took a couple of days off. And then all of a sudden, he realized what he was doing. He shifted. And then the next 2 sales he made.
right,
So we see this consistently. It's that delay. It's wake up. I'm trying to show you that what you're doing, how you're vibrating, isn't a match for what you want. It's a match for what you think you need. And that's the difference. And it can happen instantaneously or very quickly. But if you just allow it to happen and not try to force it, because your job is not the how, is up to the universe, God, your higher conscious, whatever you want to call that.
yeah,
Your job is to be clear of what you want, act as if it has already occurred, and then mainly and very importantly, let go of the outcome. Because if I didn't let go of all those outcomes, because the universe is telling me, I got something a hell of a lot better than what you're thinking.
right.
So you want to use your finite mind, or you want to use the infinite mind
Mhm.
of your higher power?
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that and I appreciate it. And I do want to now segue into some of the other things you shared with me, was the 6 sequence of people, right? Are you able to elaborate that and help us understand how these traits show up in different ways?
Yeah. So during this process, I was able to discover that there's only 3 basic traits that make up who we are.
Mhm.
And going back to the physiology, yes, trait governs certain parts of our body. So we call them the director trait, the supplier trait, and the communicator trait, because that's all we do as humans. We direct, we supply, and we communicate. Once I take those 3 traits and I place them in a sequence, we call it the protective sequence. This is how you protect yourself. And what the protective sequence is made up of 3 parts. It's made up of your superpower, which is why you're here on Earth. What we call the mediator, which is the bridge between the superpower and the saboteur, the inborn sabotaging trait. Now, those of you who are just listening and not viewing my hands, I'm Greek and Italian, I use my hands a lot. Think of a seesaw. So the superpower is the kid up top, and the inborn sabotaging trait is the kid on the ground, and the mediator is the fulcrum that's helping them seesaw back and forth. And that's how they do it. So they are opposites to each other. And a lot of times our superpower is what really trips us up. Our strength trips us up, and we use it too much in too many different ways, or not enough. When you put 3 of those traits within those 3 positions, it creates 6 sequences of human behavior. So there's only 6 people in the world.
Mm.
So we have gotten down to the science of how each sequence conflict and evolve with each other. So I can ask you a few questions. I can tell you, once I can know your sequence, I can tell you everything about you. Never ask you a question. I can tell you what happened in the past and why you did what you did, why you're doing it now, and why you'll continue doing it. If you have a significant other, I can ask you a couple of questions, tell you everything about them, and then tell you how I never meet them,
Yeah.
and then tell you how you two interact, how you conflict with each other, how you grow as a couple. Never ask a question, because that's how much of a science we have this down of how they relate to each other. For instance, those of who are business people or sales professionals out there, have you ever talked too much and that you talked yourself out of a sale? Okay. And people laughing, but yeah, I do that all the time. That's a particular, could be a couple of sequences. So when I ask, and I work with a lot of VP of sales, I ask them, what would you do with something like that? And then they would go communication. They would do communication skills. And it's, oh, that's the last thing they need. That's their superpower. They love to connect. They love to talk. The thing is, at that moment, they're overly talking. They're using the superpower. And the reason why they're overly using their communication is because of their saboteur. It could be that they don't feel valued. Maybe they're talking to a top CEO. Now they have to vomit on that CEO to show how valuable they are. Or one could be scattered and all over the place. So they're not really clear. So now they go with the tangents. They talk this, and now they're overwhelming, where now the CEO is going, if I hire you, I'm going to be even more overwhelmed and more
Yeah.
confused. And what we found is as soon as they use their antidote, that T-now method, immediately the seesaw would become balanced and their communication skills would become more effective. And we would see them start closing more effectively. So that's an example that could happen knowing a sequence.
Yeah.
Imagine having a potential client, their sequence. You'll know exactly why they're resisting your sale. And now you know how you can guide them to your product and service if that product and service is good for them.
Yeah.
Imagine you have teenagers, your children, your spouse, your business partner, your clients, your coworkers. Knowing their sequence, you'll know now why they do what they do. The judgment then goes away or decreases. And now you have compassion for them because now you know why they're protecting themselves from you or from whomever they're having a problem with.
Okay. No, that's very helpful. I am curious. Are you able to do something with me here? Okay, let's try it out.
Okay. So go back when you were a child
Yep.
because you might have had a lot of therapy and mentoring and coaching and all this. And I'm not concerned what you're going to do now. I want to do what happened beforehand. So when you were a child, were you quiet, where you were just within yourself, you listened more, or were you like more overly giving to others and more of a pleaser?
I,
Or were you scattered all over the place?
yeah, I would say depending on the situation, I would be scattered, but more towards the people pleasing side for sure.
Majority of times? Okay. And you're very organized, right? Very structured. Yeah. So basically, what's happening is that you overly give to others because you feel selfishness is a bad thing, but you're not looking at it as it being self-nourishing to you. So you have a hard time saying no to people. You give so much because you're not valuing yourself as at that moment in time because you're overthinking things. You overthink the hell out of things.
Yeah.
Now, people may have said to you, you're always right. And majority of times you are. And he's laughing right now, right? The majority of times you are. But what happens is sometimes you make stories up in your head that you think are right, which are not. So what happens is you want to manage people. You want to show them the direction and help them organize. But because of this saboteur, you can be very overpowering. They're looking at you as not trusting them and forcing yourself on them, but you want to help them. You want to share. You're compassionate towards them. And then when people resent you or they take advantage of you, you can go to the other extreme and say, screw you, I've had it with you, I'm done with you. And then after a while, you feel guilty and then you go back and overly give. And then you have that thought over and over again, causing you to become too structured and everything else like that. Does that sound like you?
Yes, absolutely. That's something I've been definitely navigating, especially
Very quick.
the last few years. Obviously, I don't have the understanding in terms of how you're presenting it, but that is something I've recognized and it's something I've worked on is especially in the work I do now in the therapy side. How can I let go and trust people and then not take it personally? Or like you said earlier, if they're not doing the work, or even in my personal life, whether it's family members or my wife. So definitely, yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening is that at that moment, you may be doing less of it, but you're still doing it because you have to. Because when you hit that wall and you start to feel uncomfortable, you start to go into that, is it me? How can I help more people? Things like that. And at that moment, you're starting to contract. And it's at that moment you're feeling you're ready to evolve. So,
Yeah.
those of you out there, when things are not going well and there's resistance and stress or whatever, don't get bummed about it. Get excited because at that moment you're ready to evolve. So, because you're getting uncomfortable, there's no such thing as a breakthrough. You don't break through anything, you just expand your comfort zone. how much easier that is. I'm just expanding my comfort zone compared to I have to break through this wall with axes and explosives.
Yeah. And I think there's a metaphysical aspect to it too as well, right? Because you're expanding your potential. And
Mhm.
sometimes you don't necessarily realize that. And I think we all lose sight of how much growth we're going through until, you, like I said earlier, you have to pull yourself back and look at it from a wider lens and see, oh, wow, I'm doing things that I didn't think I would be doing 5 years ago.
See, with your sequence, you don't need mindset. That's the last thing you need. That's why mindset won't work for you.
Yeah.
You need more feel set. You need to focus on more of your feelings. Through two-thirds of the population doesn't need mindset. Okay. One third does. The other one needs two other things. So each trait governs different parts of us. So one governs your mental thoughts, the other one governs your feelings, and the other one governs your emotions.
Mm.
So your mental, physical, and spiritual are governed by each of these three traits. And only one trait has one job. It doesn't have multiple jobs, it has just one job.
Mm.
But because of different words can describe certain things, that's when life gets complicated. For instance, you ever had a situation and I can go, this is what you're doing. And I use this word and you're like, yeah, maybe it sounds like it. And I go, okay, how about this word? And you're like, you're spot on. Realizing that these two words are synonymous with each other.
Mm.
That this word, the second one, is more relevant to that situation for that day.
Mm.
Because the next day, tomorrow, the other word could be relevant depending on it. Now you think it's all different things, but it's the same saboteur. It's only one thing for the rest of your life for you to focus on.
Yeah.
And we prove that.
Yeah. Are you able to explain a bit more in terms of what mindset is in this context? And you said everything is typically physical, spiritual, and mental. How do you tie all the different ways of looking at it?
So the mental aspect is for being structured and organized and knowledge and faith and trust within yourself. It's the path of direction of which you want to be. So with our mental thoughts and our sensory system, it's looking at where is the foe or the friend, right? What direction do I want to go in? And that's why in our brain we can look at something as a foe, but it's really a friend and vice versa, depending on our perception. The other trait deals with our gut, right? It deals with our spiritual aspect because it deals with feelings. Now, when I first looked at this was way before the internet, trying to figure out what the difference between feelings and emotions were and looking at books. And then later when the internet came up, I'm like, they sound like the same thing, but they're not. The feelings is what you're feeling inside that I will never know exactly how you're feeling. But because of the other trait that deals with the physical, which deals with the emotions, your verbal, your expressions, how I look at you of how you are expressing that and my own perception will now understand what you are feeling. For instance, my mom used to like squint and like this when she was pissed off at me. When I would see people do that, I think they were mad at me. Well, I realized one person said, no, I'm just concentrating. So now my perception changed. So when I saw a person based on what they were physically or saying to myself, I would perceive it as they're upset with me.
Mm.
Now with more experience, I've had now another context where are they upset with me or are they just concentrating, whatever? So that's why you never know what a person's feelings unless you ask.
Mm.
So each part of those three deals with the three parts of who we are.
Mm. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And maybe a good time to now shift gears and talk about the T now method. How
Okay.
can people practice it? Obviously, you've provided a lot of information around gaining that awareness around how we show up, but then how do we find that balance, as you were talking about, between that superpower and that inner saboteur trait?
Yeah, we have three ways for people to understand and to discover, to uncover this trait. One, we have a membership so that the majority of the world can do it, whether or not they're teenagers to single moms, single dads, or whomever that want to just get an understanding of this. And they get their inborn sabotaging trait in their antidote so they can understand how they do what they do. And it's a basic, but we continue to teach it throughout every week. And I show up once a month and answer questions and all that. So it's a really good way to start.
Mm.
I do workshops for companies and businesses. We'll go in and depending on exactly what that company needs, we'll do that for their employees or for the executive board. Those of you listening, you need to always start with the executive board instead of, oh, the employees need it more than we do. No, you guys need it just as much. I remember I had a $60 million company ready to implode in 2 months. And there were 4 partners. And during the whole process, we realized why they were so pissed off at each other, because based on their sequence. And once they understood, the judgments went away and they were compassionate. And then their company is now going to $100 million. Okay. It's had to start with the 4 of them. And then I have a group coaching course. We usually use that for businesses, executives, entrepreneurs, career-oriented people as well. We've had people get promotions and all that. And that's a more of an in-depth where we go much into in-depth with my work. And I am there facilitating that. So they get one-on-ones with me, they get on group calls with me, and we see, and it's a guarantee, money back guarantee. And I actually guarantee them results. So those are the 3 ways that people can have an understanding of what this T-Now method. And the T stands for transcend. So the transcend method or the T-Now method, what it does is that when you use this method, you immediately can transcend any adversity, no matter how big or small, immediately.
Yeah. And is it, so to your point, that transcending is what allows you to find that balance, essentially?
Yeah, it's basically just shifting from one end to the other. So those of you can't see, I'm holding the front part of my hand, right? My palm. You see the backhand?
No.
No. If I switch it, can you see the backhand?
Yes.
Can you see the front hand?
No.
No. So if this is fear and this is trust on the other end, when I show you trust, you can't fear. If I show you fear, you can't trust. They're happening at the moment. It's not going up a hill, trying to get smarter and doing things harder and working harder. It's just a shift. For instance, you ever see the domino masters? They set this whole elaborate thing up, right? And they push this one domino and it goes, shh. And let's say balloons are the last thing. Those balloons are your imposter syndrome, your procrastination, your over talking, your over giving, you're not talking enough, or everything that you see and feel last. So what do? We take our cope methods and put them where? We put them on the balloons, not the one domino, because the balloons is the last thing we see. So is it easier to hold down all the balloons and stop pushing the damn domino? That domino is the inborn sabotage trait that creates every negative emotion that you experience. So you push one way, you go down the saboteur to protect yourself. And that goes down the road of frustration and desperation. But when you click it and push the domino on the other side, it now goes down the road of growth, inspiration, and motivation so that you can now have a growth session. So it goes back and forth. The question is, are you using your saboteur, your inborn sabotaging trait, more on the subconscious level, consistently being in protection, or are you using the T-Now method more in order to go into more of a growth?
Yeah,
but again,
absolutely.
you can't grow. You know, are you upset with your heart that doesn't keep expanding? No, you'll be dead. Are you upset when your heart contracts? No. It's finding the balance between that contraction and expansion that makes you healthy.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing again with this fear and trust is essentially a shift in perspective in how we view a lot of these situations in life. As we already discussed, are they happening for me? And then you have that trust that, yes, it is happening for me. Now, I guess another question as we're talking about that expansion and contraction, you may get to the point of trust in certain areas of your life, and that requires work, but you may still be in fear in other areas of your life. So again, at the end of the day, it's an ongoing journey, but how do people reconcile that I'm making growth here, but why am I still stuck in these other places?
Perfect. Great question. So your professional and your personal life are one. They're not separate what people think they are.
Yeah.
When you use your saboteur, you affect both the professional and your personal life instantaneously at the same time. And when you use that antidote, the T-Now method, you affect both at the same time. For instance, had a manager, took my workshop. He came up to me, was really excited, really understood it. And he said to me, my son's always upstairs playing video games. I can't get him downstairs to interact with the family. So I asked him a few questions, just like I did with you. We ascertained his sequence. And then at that moment, I told him exactly what to do. Within less than a week, his son was interacting with the family. And within 2 months, their relationship skyrocketed because he realized he was the one pushing his son back in the room. He was making fun of him and all that because that's how he grew up, how he was motivated, but it did the opposite to his son. Now he knew his son's sequence. So then he realized uh, he was doing the same thing in his business. He was doing the same thing with the employees and customers and everything else. And as he shifted that, his business skyrocketed as well. So depending on how severe certain things are in your lives. So if I have a paper cut, right? Am I going to band-aid it and stitch it up? No, I'm just going to wait for it to heal and be careful with it. In a couple of days, it's gone. If I have a big gash in it, right? Do I just do the same thing? No, I'm going to put the gauze on it. It's going to take longer to heal. Yeah. So when I have clients, depending on what the severity of is in their personal life as well as their professional life, certain parts, they'll start seeing major shifts quicker than the other parts because the other parts need longer to deal with it. Plus, it needs time for the universe to bring things in to help facilitate that thing.
Yeah.
And if everything went so well, you guys would be bored and you'd be listening to a podcast of how to stop being bored.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. You're not here because for everything to go well. You're here for the contrast. You're here for adversity so you can evolve.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess one of the things, because I talk to so many people and they have similar struggles, and I know this is very specific, but around children playing video games. So you said you provided some guidance. What can parents do? Because that is definitely an issue we are seeing quite a bit, and many people are struggling with it.
The only way they can do is finding out their inborn, their sequence. We've had people from different venues. We've had divorces ready to go into divorce, and now they're still married because they understand they were now just protecting themselves, not hating each other. And then you bring children involved. Why would one parent be more focused on the other or defending the other person, the other child? And why is the other parent screaming at the child? Once they understand their sequence, they understand. For instance, we had this situation, and the mother would scream at the kid to get up from the other room and do all these different things. And that was just her superpower. Okay. Yeah. Once she understood his sequence, it had to change. She had to go to him, had to prepare him the night before. We had to get him up, and things started to shift because she wasn't screaming anymore. She was understanding this is what he needs compared to her other child who used to get up and do everything the way she wanted to. But when that child didn't do or had difficulties, she now knew that she had to deal with that child differently than her son. Once you know the sequence, life gets so much easier.
Yeah.
Look, I have 2 children. They're 27, 33 now, 2 girls. My oldest one gave me my gray hair. I have 4 stepchildren, 7 grandchildren, and we use this consistently with them as well. And we see a much different shift once we understand what's going on with them.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I think 2 points that I would like to reemphasize based on what you've shared already is don't take it personally. And then it is a protective mechanism, right? So if you see your child, again, using that as an example, who's constantly playing video games, not coming out of the room, don't take it personally as a parent, but then recognize that they're doing it as a protective mechanism. How can you then have that compassion and understand what?
Yeah, and don't go into don't catastrophize. Oh, they don't do that, they're going to fail in life and they're going to be a bum. So them just playing video games.
Yeah.
The other thing too is if they're 4 or 6 or 13, that's how many years they've been on this earth. You don't have your stuff together. Why would you think they would?
Yeah.
And they're really just looking at how you're not dealing with it as well.
For
And
sure.
when I first heard that, I was like, that makes total sense.
Yes.
I got a 12-year-old who I think only has 12 years of experience. And I had, I don't know, was I 40, whatever what it was. And I'm like, I wasn't getting, so yeah, just got to give them grace. And you're there to help them through it, not to make it worse or get frustrated because you're seeing you in them.
Yes.
What they're doing is what you're not doing. Anytime anybody really upsets you, sit back for a moment and say, am I doing the same thing? And I tell you 100% of the time when I've had this with clients, whoever, that's what's happening.
Yes.
It's for you to take care of that part of you. And then therefore, when they do it, it won't be as emotionally charged for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And touching on that, because obviously you've shared a lot of knowledge and awareness that you have, how do you navigate your inner saboteur and when it comes up? Because as we've been able to discuss thus far, it is an ongoing experience and evolution. So how have you been able to navigate it, knowing all this as well?
I'm a mess. No, I'm kidding. Number one, I know that I will use my saboteur and I don't get upset with it if
Mm.
I am not doing what I'm supposed to do. Okay. I'm going to answer that, but let me give you
Yeah, of course.
another example. I don't care if you go into a corner when you're upset, take your pillow, suck your thumb, and get in a fetal position on the floor. I'm good with that. And people are like, what are you, nuts? That's horrible. No, that's just how you protect yourself.
Mm.
The problem is, how long are you there for? That's the problem. How long are you using your inborn sabotaging trait more than your antidote, right? So it's okay if you're scattered all over the place, or you overly gave to somebody, or you didn't really express and say, I should have said that to that person. It's okay. Give yourself some grace. What can I do differently next time? Differently, not better or smarter, because that's like going up a hill, right? Because if you stop, then you lose ground. That's why people freak out. They consistently go. But if you're going down a road and you realize that wasn't a great road, what are you going to do? You make a left or a right. It's nice and easy. It's lateral compared to going uphill against gravity.
Mm.
So what could I have done differently? What could I have said differently? How could I have been a little more less scattered and more organized? How could I have not given so much and I was okay taking, because at that moment I needed to self-nourish myself and not them, right? So I use my antidote all the time. When I don't use it, it is because I'm doing something I don't like, and I have to become aware of it and say, okay, why are you doing this? I don't want to do this. Okay, do we have to get this done immediately? Yes. I don't care. Take a 3-minute break, do some push-ups, run up and down, get the blood working, get your butt down, and get it done. And that's what I talk to myself about, right? So am I organized and things like that? So I have certain things that I need to do. When I don't do it, I don't get on myself. I just know I'm ready to evolve. I'm doing something uncomfortable. What can I do? How do I use my antidote and all the other things I've teach to go through it?
Mm.
So that's what I did for the last five months.
Yeah.
If I was telling you about, did I at times go, oh my God, what the? Of course I did. I'm human,
Yeah.
right? When I was a functional medicine doc, I used to tell people, hey, I do 90 to 95% of what I'm going to tell you. Do I do 5% and eat crap once in a while? Yeah, I'm human. I grew up on this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. So same thing here. What I do, and if I haven't, and I'm totally transparent with my clients. Yeah, I had this situation. I did this.
Yeah.
What would you have done differently? What would you help coach me on? And then it would be exactly what I did. Good question. I hope that answered it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to recognize that even if you look at it in the sense that you're the teacher's still learning too, right? And sometimes the teacher and the student have to learn together.
If I may not learn, we're just protecting myself.
Yeah.
That experience was something that I was given as a gift, and I looked at it as a detriment. I looked at certain times delays as a detriment. Come on. And then what I usually say, I don't say, please give me more strength or give me more patience. I already have all that. I just ask, help me tap into my patience more and to expand it.
Absolutely.
Because everything is in you. You're the mass murderer, you're the Mother Teresa. You are the lovely person, you're the hateful person, you're the ugly person, you're the beautiful person. Everything's within you. It is up to you what you want to tap into to show yourself in the world at that moment. And
Yes.
if you don't, and you go to the other side, it's okay. How long you been holding it? Are you being hating and stressful for 5 days, 5 weeks compared to 5 minutes or maybe a day? And that will have a less dramatic on your health, on your spiritual aspect of who you are, and your mental.
Mhm. No, that's amazing. And thank you so much for all of that. And thank you so much for this conversation. I've taken a lot back, and I hope the listeners will as well, because there's a lot of nuance here, but at the same time, valuable information and just understanding ourselves and not working against ourselves, but really finding the ways we protect ourselves for a reason. but not letting it hinder our growth. So I definitely appreciate all that. Now, you did touch on the ways in terms of how people can tap into the T Now method and work with you. But what are some ways people can find your work online? You've got your book there. Are you able to share some of those resources as well?
Yeah. And so, yes, there's a few ways. I'm on social media as well. We're ramping up a lot of different things now. You'll see more and more of me on social media. That's our focus. They can go to our website. The book is there, which goes into actually the 6 steps of what we call nature's blueprint. It's a blueprint that started it all. And I wrote it 5 years ago. I need a new book. I'm working on it, but I've been focusing on all my other courses first. So they can have, depending on who they are, and I know you'll have the links below in your podcast. If they're looking for just a membership to understand, they can go to thetnowmethod.com and learn a little bit more if they want to sign up. They want to have a more of a conversation. If they're a business owner, executives, entrepreneurs, sales professional, or somebody who's very career oriented and want to really boost their thought on it, they can go to the T Now. I'm sorry. They can go to tnowmasterclass.com, and then they can watch a 12-minute video. It goes a little deeper. They can see testimonials, and then they can have a 30-minute discovery call to determine if they are a candidate for the program. If they have money and they breathe, does not mean they are qualified.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very picky about who comes into our program. And if they can be helped, and we know that, then they get in. If there's a good collaboration between us, knowing that this is what we're looking for. But if not, then we will then tell them to try some other programs that we have.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Phil. We'll put all of that in the show notes. But this was really fun. So thank you for that.
I had a blast. I hope this was valuable for you and to your audience. And thank you so much. I really had a great time.